Good morning. A short explanation. I am an acting pro tem. I am temporary pro tem for the purposes of the Joint Assembly, elected by the Senate as a whole, because we are without our current pro tem, who is away on a trip, and our governor is also on a trip. So our lieutenant governor, who would be, who ordinarily leads the Senate, is acting governor. So that's the explanation. But I enjoy being here with you all and look forward to our joint assembly. We are now called to order, and this joint assembly is convened pursuant to the provisions of JRS 12, which the clerk will now read.
Providing for the election of a sergeant at arms and 3 trustees of the University of Vermont and Agricultural College. Resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the 2 houses meet in joint assembly on Thursday, February 20, 2025 at 10 o'clock and 30 minutes in the forenoon to elect a sergeant at arms and 3 trustees of the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College. In case election of all such officers shall not be made on that day, the 2 houses shall meet in joint assembly at 10 o'clock and 30 minutes in the forenoon on each succeeding day, Saturdays and Sundays excepted, and proceed in such election until all such officers are elected.
Pursuant to our Constitution and statutes, we are assembled here today in joint assembly for the election of a sergeant at arms and 3 trustees for the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College. With respect to the election of all of these officers, if a contest exists, then the voting must be done by written ballot. This mandate is set forth in 2 VSA paragraph 12 and in Joint Rule 10A. The chair now calls to the attention of the Joint Assembly the text of Joint Rule 10, which applies to elections held by this assembly. Rule 10A states, whenever a joint assembly is required to elect 1 or more persons to any office, the voting shall be by ballot, except that if there is only 1 candidate for any office, and if there is no objection, the chair may put the question to the joint assembly by voice vote. If 2 or more offices are to be filled, each office will be voted upon and decided separately. If 2 or more vacancies for the same office are to be filled, nominations for all vacancies will be received before voting begins for the first vacancy, but each vacancy will be voted on and decided separately. The Joint Assembly may limit the number and length of nominating and seconding speeches for each candidate. Election to any office is by a majority of the votes cast, exclusive of spoiled and blank ballots. After 2 votes have been taken for any vacancy without an election, all nominees, except the 2 having the highest number of votes on the second ballot, shall be withdrawn, and the voting shall then continue until a candidate is elected. In no event shall the involuntary removal of nominees result in fewer than 2 nominees remaining for the contest. The person who first nominated a candidate may withdraw that candidate's name at any time. A withdrawal may be complete or may be limited to 1 or more vacancies. A candidate for any office having more than 1 vacancy who is defeated for the first vacancy shall automatically be a candidate for successive vacancies unless the nomination is voluntarily withdrawn. For purposes of this joint assembly, all nominations for these offices will be received by the chair prior to voting, presented in alphabetical order. And there will be only 1 nominating speech of not more than 3 minutes and not more than 2 seconding speeches of not more than 1 minute each for each nominee. We have 2 sets of elections today. First, to elect a sergeant at arms, and second, to elect 3 UVM trustees. For the elections that are not contested, the provisions of Joint Rule 10A will apply. This means that the elections may be by voice vote if there is no objection. At this time, I'd like to appoint the tellers. As there are 5 candidates in the election for the 3 trustees of the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College, we will need tellers, and the chair now appoints as tellers the following: Senator Collmore of Rutland District as chief teller, Senator Vyhovsky of Chittenden Central District, Senator Watson of Washington District, Representative White, the member from Bethel, Representative Bartley, the member from Fairfax, Representative Lipsky, the member from Stowe, Representative Chapin, the member from East Montpelier. We shall now proceed to the election of a sergeant at arms. Are there any nominations for the office of sergeant at arms? The chair will recognize the member from Brattleboro, Representative Burke. Representative Burke. There you are. Welcome.
Madam President, Madam Speaker, members of the General Assembly, it is my great honor to nominate Agatha Kessler for the position of Sergeant at Arms for the Vermont State House. Agatha's vast experience in this building, experience with state government, and her humility, kindness, and diplomacy make her an outstanding Sergeant at Arms. I first met Agatha when I took my position as a legislator in 2009. She exuded warmth and welcome throughout the halls of the State House. She served in various capacities, in and out of the State House, before being elected last year as Sergeant at Arms. It is her favorite role. She delights in making people feel welcome, safe, and comfortable at the State House. Agatha and her team have spent the last year working to move the State House towards more normal operations in the aftermath of COVID-19 and the flood. Cafeteria chairs lost in the flood have been replaced, and the dining room can now seat up to 140 guests. Additionally, with the completion of the mezzanine committee suite project, rooms 10 and 11 are now available for general use. She believes that public access to the State House is a requirement of democracy, and that Vermont is a shining example of transparency and civic engagement. Under Agatha's leadership, we have seen the transformation of the Capitol Police into an effective and protective unit. Agatha has a close partnership and excellent working relationship with the chief and with each officer in the department. She supports the department's mission to serve compassionately and create security programs that balance accessibility and safety of the building. Agatha values institutional knowledge and systems and recognizes that we are all caretakers of this building for a period of time in history. She believes that tradition and precedent are important ingredients in providing consistency and stability to State House operations. As such, she seeks the wisdom and counsel of those that have come before her, most notably Janet Miller, the retired Sergeant at Arms, and Demis Martin, a retired supervisor and 40-year legislative employee. Both Demis and Janet trained Agatha, and she is honored to have them as mentors. Other mentors include her parents, Magdalena and Alan Kessler, who taught by example to give generously. As much as Agatha is competent in high-stakes situations, she's also calm and confident. Her interpersonal skills are outstanding. She has a warm and engaging personality. She exhibits a genuine interest in each person she encounters. She's a gifted problem solver, an excellent listener, and a natural leader. She brings kindness, integrity, and a positive attitude to every situation and encounter. She is also a gracious and welcoming presence and a respectful manager of the State House for the members of the General Assembly and the public, bringing dignity and style to the office. It is with my highest recommendation that I ask you to join me in voting for Agatha Kessler for Sergeant at Arms.
Now, the representative from Brattleboro has moved that Agatha Kessler of Barrytown be elected as Sergeant at Arms. Is there a second to that nomination? The chair recognizes the member from Coventry, Representative Marcotte.
Thank you, Madam President. My dear colleagues, it's an honor and privilege that I rise to second the nomination for Agatha Kessler as our Sergeant at Arms for the ensuing 2 years. Through the many years that I have known Agatha, I've always found her to be an honest, hardworking, and caring public servant. Her respect for the legislature is most evident in the pride with which she capably and gracefully administers the many duties as our Sergeant at Arms. Agatha has told me just how much of an honor it is for her to have the opportunity to serve us, to serve Vermonters and all others who come to visit or work at the State House. She enters the State House each day with a smile on her face, serving each person in the building as an individual. Agatha and her team of dedicated and talented staff work each and every day towards a noble and critical goal of making the Vermont State House a welcoming, safe, and comfortable space to be in. We know that as the expectations of building functionality continue to grow and political climates become more hostile, the duty of our Sergeant at Arms is first and foremost to keep the people safe and the building functioning properly. We are so fortunate to have Agatha as our Sergeant at Arms in these difficult times. Her poise, tact, and character make her ideal for this role. Please join me in re-electing Agatha Kessler as our Sergeant at Arms. Thank you.
Now the motion has been made and seconded that Agatha Kessler of Barrytown be elected Sergeant at Arms. Are there any other nominations? There being no other nominations, the chair declares that the nominations are closed. We shall now proceed to vote by voice vote for this uncontested election unless there is an objection under Rule 10A. Seeing no objection, are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor of the election of Agatha Kessler as Sergeant at Arms, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. You have elected Agatha Kessler of Barrytown Sergeant at Arms for a term of 2 years from and including the first day of March 2025 and until her successor is elected and has qualified. Thank you. We shall now proceed to the election of 3 trustees of the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College, each for a term of 6 years from and including the first day of March 2025. The chair reminds the Joint Assembly that nominations for the office of UVM trustee will be received in alphabetical order with 1 nominating speech of not more than 3 minutes and not more than 2 seconding speeches of not more than 1 minute each for each nominee. For the election of UVM trustees, we will be operating under the temporary rules set forth in JRS 13. The adoption of JRS 13 permits the Joint Assembly to elect the 3 trustees of the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College by a plurality vote. A plurality voting procedure simply means that the 3 candidates receiving the greatest number of total votes cast are elected, and you will be instructed to vote for not more than 3 candidates at the same time and on the same ballot. We shall now proceed to the election to fill the 3 vacancies for trustees of the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College. Are there any nominees for these 3 vacancies? The chair recognizes a member from Waterbury, Representative Stevens.
Thank you. Today, I rise to nominate Representative John Bartholomew for election to the Board of Trustees for the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College. Like many of us, John has adopted Vermont as his home, and like many of us, he's dedicated his life to public service. He has served in the House of Representatives since 2010, serving on the Agriculture and Forestry Committee, the Transportation Committee, and the Environmental Committee. John is also a Justice of the Peace and serves on the Civil Board of Authority and Abatement in his hometown of Heartland. John serves as a parliamentarian for his caucus, which means to me that he has read and reread Mason's Rules of Order and continues to master the nuances and details of the rules that run the way we do business in this hall. Which I may say, I have not. And for that alone, John has earned my respect over the years. Reading John's CV, you would not be surprised of his dedication to the details. John grew up in a Navy family, living and attending public schools in numerous and diverse places across the country, and achieving degrees in agriculture and veterinary medicine. And when his studies were completed, he served as a veterinarian in both the Air Force and the Army, and found himself based in Turkey, and perhaps as exciting, in Maryland, where he was the attending veterinarian on contract for the National Cancer Institute at the National Institutes of Health. He finished his career with the rank of captain in the U.S. Public Health Service, one of the 8 uniformed services of the United States Armed Forces, and served as branch chief at the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development at the National Institutes of Health, an extremely complex organization comprised of over 20 institutes and health centers. In other words, John understands large institutions. John was a key manager and team player, reporting directly to his institute's scientific director, and he was recognized for his outstanding performance in management by his scientific director, the director of the NIH, and the Surgeon General of the United States. If you know John from his extracurricular work in the State House, you know his commitment to the arts. He's a musician, a performer, a technician, and one of the organizers of our Farmers' Nights. The most important experience John brings to this election is simple. He's been there before. He served as trustee during what was perhaps the most difficult period for the university, during COVID, when UVM was recognized for its successes in navigating the disruptions and challenges of the pandemic. He has the experience to help the university provide a solid education for its graduates, to ensure the accessibility and affordability of UVM for Vermonters, and for those students from around the world who benefit from studying at a school now known for its research excellence. With his experience in biomedical research, public health, biology, agriculture, environment, and sustainability, John has a unique and valuable perspective to offer to the Board of Trustees. Finally, here's what I appreciate about John. He listens. His long years of institutional leadership brings a constructive and collaborative approach to problem solving, an understanding of the basic principles of systems thinking, and a respect for perspectives that are different from his own. This quality alone makes John an excellent choice for the UVM Board of Trustees. It is without hesitation that I recommend Representative John Bartholomew as a trustee for the University of Vermont. Please join me in voting for him.
Now the member from Waterbury has moved that Representative John Bartholomew of Heartland be elected as a trustee of the University of Vermont. Is there a second to that nomination? The chair recognizes the member from Swanton, Representative Walker.
Good morning, Madam President. I rise to second the nomination of Representative John L. Bartholomew of Heartland as a candidate for the University of Vermont Board of Trustees. For those who've been around a little while, and as is spoken to, he's a strong parliamentarian, and usually when I rise, I'm very worried about being called for a point of order. I'm hoping that won't be a problem here this morning. Why is it important to Vermont and to me that John be elected as board of member or trustee? John is uniquely positioned to contribute as a member of the Board of Trustees. As you've heard in recent media reports, the University of Vermont has achieved R1 institution status, a designation given by the Carnegie Classification of Institutions of Higher Education, The R1 label is in part a recognition of the massive growth in annual research funding that the university has seen. This growth is critical to the university's future and its contribution to Vermont and every Vermonter that is impacted. So John, to be clear, was the chief of research animal management branch of the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development at the National Institute of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. John wore the uniform, worked, lived, and led in Bethesda at the National Institute of Health. That's critical experience for the direction that the University of Vermont is headed and will help contribute and lead Vermont as forward. So as a proud UVM alumnus myself, I would like to make sure and urge the body to support his candidacy as the university needs that leadership in its growth and future. Thank you, Madam President.
The motion has been made and seconded that Representative John Bartholomew of Heartland be elected as a trustee of the University of Vermont. Are there any other nominations? The chair recognizes from Chittenden Southeast District, Senator Chittenden.
Thank you. I am pleased to nominate Senator Scott Beck of the Caledonia District for the position of trustee at the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College. As some of you may know, I am a proud catamount. I went to UVM, I work at UVM, and I really hope my 3 kids go to UVM. I also like to say I bleed green and gold. And with this perspective, I'm happy to offer a nomination for the University of Vermont Board of Trustees, my alma mater. As we consider the future of the University of Vermont, it is crucial that UVM has leaders who are not only deeply committed to academic excellence and accessibility, but also to the UVM common ground principles of respect, integrity, innovation, openness, justice, and responsibility. For those reasons, I offer that Scott Beck, serving as trustee, is the right person for this vital role for our state's flagship university. Senator Beck has consistently demonstrated a lifelong dedication to public higher education. His undergraduate degree and graduate degrees were earned at public institutions, and his 6 children have all attended public universities, 3 at UVM. One of them recently suffered through my class. During his time in the House, Scott established a long-standing relationship with past UVM presidents, and I believe he understands UVM's history, current challenges, successes, aspirations, and opportunities for the future. But it is not just Senator Beck's experience that sets him apart. It is his passion for advancing higher education, promoting diversity and inclusion, and ensuring that UVM remains a beacon of excellence in research and teaching. Scott has a simple goal for advancing UVM: make it even more accessible and affordable for all Vermont students. The culture of a university campus is terribly important and must be inclusive. Senator Beck, before returning to Vermont in 1999, served as assistant professor at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. For those of you who may remember, those were the years that the Citadel was forced by court order to integrate women into the undergraduate programs. Scott was the company officer of the first company to be integrated and held that post for 3 academic years. It is with great enthusiasm that I nominate Senator Beck for trustee to the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College. I am confident that his leadership will continue our era of growth and opportunity for UVM, now as an R1 institution, and he will be a dedicated steward of the values and principles that make UVM truly exceptional. Go Cats.
Now the senator from Chittenden Southeast District has moved that Senator Scott Beck from Caledonia District be elected as a trustee of the University of Vermont. Is there a second to the nomination? The chair recognizes the member from Brattleboro, Representative Kornheiser.
Madam President, first I would like to apologize to you and the body. I have my device here because I did not have a moment to print my remarks before I got here. So I ask for your forgiveness for that violation of the rules. I am standing today to second the nomination of Senator Beck for the position of trustee at the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College. Scott and I served on Ways and Means for 5 years, ending last year, and I believe he is well suited to be a trustee. I think particularly today on NEK Day at the State House, having a senator and a representative from the Northeast Kingdom on the UVM board is also a valuable addition. UVM exists to serve all of Vermont and the youth of Vermont while trying to be a good neighbor to its host city. But UVM is so much more. It is a global leader and economic and employment engine for our state, and recently, I'm happy to say, achieved Carnegie R1 designation. On a personal note, I attended graduate school in economics at UVM, and my child is currently attending the engineering college. We both made that decision to stay in state for education on financial grounds, both a funded graduate program for me and the Green and Gold program for my child. Those programs do much to help UVM balance the needs of Vermonters with the needs of a global academic institution. Senator Beck understands this balance. He has 6 children. All attended public higher education and 3 attended UVM. I find that just extraordinary as someone who has barely gotten 1 to college. He also understands another balance. Until he made the strange decision of moving to the Senate, I thought of him as a fairly nonpartisan colleague. Last year, another member of Ways and Means called Scott Representative 50-50. And change management work requires focus, collaboration, and bringing all voices to the table. I am excited by the change management work that UVM is on, and I believe that Senator Beck, as a trustee, will be a valuable member of that team. I encourage you to vote for him.
The motion has been made and seconded that Senator Scott Beck from Caledonia District be elected as a trustee of the University of Vermont. Are there any other nominations? The chair recognizes the member from Putney, Representative Moricki. There he is. Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity and the honor to nominate Kevin Coach Christie as UVM trustee. Coach Christie is as qualified and dedicated as any Vermonter in and out of the legislature to work on the UVM Board of Trustees. His intelligence, experience, and his acumen, along with his decades of dedication to Vermont youth, place him second to none in being eminently qualified to see how the big picture is made up of the people in that picture. Coach's time as an educator, administrator, coach, legislator, husband, father, and friend to so many make it easy to stand in support of Coach's candidacy for the UVM board. In this time of chaos and uncertainty being foisted on us from DC, we need the calm, steady presence that Coach brings to any situation we may find us in. Along with those other attributes and qualifications, Coach also brings another perspective that's important to a place on the UVM board as the son of immigrants. American Vermont has always been, as Franklin Roosevelt described us, as a nation of descendants of revolutionaries and immigrants. Moving into the future, that perspective is as important as ever in an increasingly diverse population in Vermont. Lastly, Coach is someone who plays well with others and knows any working group is only as effective as the individuals in it, and Coach is a team player all the way. Please join me in voting for Kevin Coach Christie for UVM trustee.
Now the member from Putney has moved that Representative Kevin Coach Christie of Hartford be elected as a trustee of the University of Vermont. Is there a second to the nomination? The chair recognizes the member from West Windsor, Representative Burrows.
Good morning. I apologize. It is handwritten, though, but it is not printed out. House and Senate colleagues, I rise humbly this morning to second the nomination of Representative Kevin Coach Christie, and I will be less than 1 minute. Kevin Coach Christie has not only devoted the majority of his professional life to the support and equitable and just development of education, but who also brings a crucial, needed perspective to his work as a UVM trustee. This state of Vermont is a field of veritable wildflowers seeded all over by our Coach's good works. Coach holds the credentials, he has the experience, and it is of consequence to our state's full education spectrum that he continues his important work. Please join me in supporting the candidacy of Representative Coach Christie with your vote. Thank you.
The motion has been made and seconded that Representative Kevin Coach Christie of Hartford be elected as a trustee of the University of Vermont. Are there any other nominations? The chair recognizes the senator from Windsor District, Senator White.
Haven't stood here in a bit. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Madam Speaker, esteemed representatives and senators. I'm honored today to nominate State Representative Troy Hedrick for the position of the UVM Board of Trustees. Troy, if you don't know all the senators, could you give a little wave? There we go. Troy has dedicated his life to higher education, and the vast majority of his career in higher education has been spent at the University of Vermont. He has a deeply rooted connection to the institution, and that's evident not only in his career, but in his family. Both of his daughters graduated from the University of Vermont, and one with a master's degree, and his wife, his partner, is also a higher education professional. As a family, they live and breathe the values of higher education and see it as an avenue for accessing middle-class life. Troy has a unique perspective for the future of UVM, and I think is the most interesting and potentially the best change for catalyst for change amongst the candidates we have today. He has been a strong advocate for the benefit of higher education, but he's also deeply concerned with the growing commodification of higher education. He understands that now more than ever, we must approach higher education with a student and a staff-centered focus, especially as we see a housing crisis that I recently heard described by a UVM student as the Hunger Games of housing for juniors and seniors. He is committed to being part of the conversation and working to get it right while ensuring that UVM remains a place of opportunity and growth for all. To quote the representative, "This role would allow me to continue advocating for the well-being of those who have made our university thrive while ensuring that we as legislators maintain a meaningful connection to UVM and who it serves." This is a 6-year term, and it's a crucial moment in UVM's history. We need leaders who are passionate, forward-thinking, and committed to the core values of this institution. As I believe the most recent graduate to be making a nomination speech as a UVM grad of 2015, I know that the university is at a pivotal moment where we have decisions that need to be made that do focus on students and do focus on staff and not necessarily wealth generation. Troy is exactly that leader, and I have full confidence in his ability to serve on the board and to speak truth to power. It is with great enthusiasm that I nominate the flair-filled, passion-filled, and magnanimous Representative Troy Hedrick to the position of UVM Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Now, the senator from Windsor District has moved that Representative Troy Hedrick of Burlington be elected as a trustee of the University of Vermont. Is there a second to the nomination? The chair recognizes the member from Montpelier, Representative Casey.
Madam President, I must also apologize to the Senate for my obscene lack of decorum here today. Please don't hold it against the candidate. I'm very proud to rise today to second the nomination of an incredible gentleman, my friend and colleague, Representative Troy Hedrick, for the legislative seat, one of the legislative seats on the UVM Board of Trustees. Troy has his thumb on the pulse of the UVM community. How? He represents much of the campus district and works directly in the Student Affairs Office, giving a rare level understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing students, staff, and faculty. What truly sets Troy apart is how deeply he cares about the well-being of students and workers who make the university thrive. I see him talk about it every day. He spent almost his entire career advocating for the success of these folks and ensuring that UVM remains a place where everybody has the opportunity to succeed. I didn't write it down, but I would be remiss in not mentioning that Troy was also the national mustache champion for a period. So you can have confidence that he'll bring an element of style to any boardroom. So I have every confidence that Troy would be an outstanding addition to the board, and I do encourage the body's support. Thank you very much.
The motion has been made and seconded that Representative Troy Hedrick of Burlington be elected as a trustee of the University of Vermont. Are there any other nominations? The chair recognizes the member from South Burlington, Representative Lalonde.
Madam President, Madam Speaker, and members of the General Assembly, I am happy to nominate Carol Odie for re-election to the University of Vermont Board of Trustees. The university is fortunate that Representative Odie has decided to seek re-election. She has served on the board since 2019, gaining valuable insight into the challenges faced by the university. 6 years ago, Carol first ran to be a legislative trustee for the University of Vermont. She did then what she is doing now in her campaign, listening to questions and ideas from representatives and senators about UVM and bringing those priorities to the UVM board. Two of the priorities she will continue to address are access to housing and affordability. As for housing, during her term, hundreds of new beds have been added for juniors, seniors, graduate students, and staff, but the availability of student housing continues to be a concern. As to affordability, after several years of a tuition freeze, the pressures of inflation have led to increases in tuition. In the face of these pressures, Carol has fought for Vermonters seeking access to higher education. She supported UVM's policy that allows Vermont families with incomes under $100,000 to send their students to UVM tuition-free. In addition, Carol wants to find ways to ensure that UVM is educating more teachers, nurses, and doctors to fill our state's need for those professions. Carol Odie believes in listening and then working hard to get things done for Vermonters. Carol has been a representative from the New North End of Burlington since 2017. She served 2 terms on the Environment and Natural Resources Committee and is in her 3rd term on the Ways and Means Committee. Through my participation with her on the House Ethics Panel and as her seatmate in the chamber, I have come to know Carol as a thoughtful problem solver. She has proven her ability to understand, distill, and communicate complicated issues. She is able to develop creative solutions. She is passionate about solving the problems that we face in Vermont. We need her skill set and good judgment on the Board of Trustees. In addition, Carol has deep ties to UVM. She is a UVM alum who cares deeply about the school's success. We need her continued commitment to the university as a member of its Board of Trustees. Please join me in supporting Carol in her re-election bid. Thank you.
Now, the member from South Burlington has moved that Representative Carol Odie of Burlington be elected as a trustee of the University of Vermont. Is there a second to the nomination? The chair represents the member from Chittenden, Representative Harrison.
Madam President, it is an honor to second the nomination of Carol Odie for re-election to the UVM board. When Carol first ran for the position as a trustee, she made it a point to reach out to each member and ask what their priorities were for the university. She continues to offer today to meet with any of us to gather input to help improve UVM. Some may recall Representative Odie's past handwritten invitations to attend the RISE conference at UVM. Quite simply, she puts in the extra effort. I have known Carol her entire tenure in the legislature, and she has very many admirable qualities. I think it's also important to know she is not perfect, as evidenced by calling a rule of order on the member from Chittenden. But more importantly, Madam President, and the real reason for expressing my support for her candidacy is because she has seen the humor in some of my March Madness updates and has told me so. Kidding aside, please join me in casting one of your votes for Carol Odie today. She is sincere in wanting what is best for our university and will work hard on our behalf. Thank you.
The motion has been made and seconded that Representative Carol Odie of Burlington be elected as a trustee of the University of Vermont. Are there any other nominations? There being no other nominations, the chair declares that the nominations are now closed. Accordingly, we have 5 names placed in nomination and on the ballot for the office of trustee of the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College as follows. Representative John Bartholomew of Heartland, Senator Scott Beck of Caledonia District, Representative Kevin Coach Christie of Hartford, Representative Troy Hedrick of Burlington, Representative Carol Odie of Burlington. Is there any debate with respect to these nominees? If not, we shall proceed to the vote. And before we pass out the ballots, let us review briefly our voting procedure for this election. And I'm quoting verbatim from the language set forth in JRS 13. All candidates for the office of trustee shall be voted upon and decided on the same ballot. Members may vote for any number of candidates up to and including the maximum number of vacancies to be filled, which in this case shall be 3. The 3 candidates receiving the most votes shall be declared elected to the 3 vacancies. In the event that the first balloting for the trustee vacancies results in a tie vote for one or more of the 3 vacant positions, then voting shall continue on successive ballots until the vacancies have been filled. Again, by election declared of those candidates receiving the most votes. As this is a vote by ballot, I want to remind you of the rules that govern us. Insofar as they are applicable, the Senate rules apply. It is a duty of each representative and senator to vote unless excused by this joint assembly or unless he or she is directly or immediately has interest in the question being voted on. You are to remain seated while the tellers distribute the ballots. If a member is not seated, no ballot will be placed at the member's desk or seat. You are to remain seated during voting and while the ballots are collected by the tellers. There is no milling about in the chamber during the counting of the ballots. You are requested to remain in your seats during the counting of the ballots unless it's necessary to step out of the chamber. If you leave the chamber during the counting of the ballots, you will not be permitted to re-enter the chamber until the counting of the ballots has been completed. Okay? Thank you. The tellers are now instructed to distribute the ballots to the members of this joint assembly for the purpose of voting for the 3 vacancies. Tellers, please. Thank you. Good luck. You need to sing. Yeah, yes, great singing comics. A quick note, as you look at your ballot, you will see that Carol Odie does not have a box next at the end of the line next to her name. So put an X there next to her name. If you want to draw a box and be creative, you can do that, but make sure it's very clear. Thank you. Another quick note, do not sign your ballots. There is no requirement to sign your ballots. I know it may appear confusing with the lines below and the certification or whatever, so you do not have to sign your ballots. Thank you. Has everyone voted? Yes, okay. So the tellers will now collect the ballots. Thank you. tellers for their work. We appreciate it. Listen to the results of your vote. Necessary ballots for election are 65, and the three greater numbers of votes. Representative John Bartholomew received 65 votes. Senator Scott Beck received 115 votes. Representative Kevin Coach Christie received 43 votes. Representative Troy Hedrick received 58 votes. Representative Carol Odie received 90 votes. Others received 2 votes. Senator Scott Beck, having received the greatest number of the total votes cast, is hereby declared duly elected as a trustee of the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College for a term of 6 years, commencing March 1st, 2025. And also, Representative Carol Odie, having received the next greatest number of the total votes cast, is hereby declared duly elected as a trustee of the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College for a term of 6 years, commencing on March 1st, 2025. And also, Representative John Bartholomew, having received the greatest number of the total votes cast, is hereby declared duly elected as a trustee of the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College for a term of 6 years, commencing March 1st, 2025. Congratulations. Thank you all. Before we dissolve this session, I will ask that House members please stay in your seats, allowing for the Senate to return to the chamber. And we appreciate your attention to that. And thank you all for this joint assembly. There being no further business, I do hereby declare this joint assembly dissolved.